Unlock your potential today at skillbakery.com.
This is the default web application that we created using SolidStart. Now let's go ahead and understand the directory structure that it created. So over here we have node modules, public, src, and then some files. First one is the node module. Now, node modules, as you can see, contains all the installed dependencies for the project, and it is managed using the command npm. Coming on to the other directory, that's public. It holds static assets like images, fonts, icons, and other files that do not go through the build process. The contents of this folder are directly accessible in the browser. Then we have the src directory. Now this is the main source code directory. It includes application logic, components, and styles. The key files that you see over here are app.tsx, which contains styles for the application. Then we have the app.tsx. This is the entry point of the app, rendering the app component. Then we have entry-client.tsx. It handles the client-side rendering of the application. Then we have entry-server.tsx, which manages server-side rendering for the application. Then we have the global.d.ts, which is TypeScript declaration file for global settings. Then we have gitignore. It specifies files and folders that Git should ignore, for example, node modules, build files, etc. Then we have the app.config.ts file. It's a configuration file for the application. It may contain settings related to routing, SSR, and SSG. By default, we have SSR enabled in SolidStart. Next, we have package-log.json file. This is automatically generated file that locks the exact version of dependencies to ensure reproducible builds. Then we have the package.json file. It defines project metadata, dependencies, and scripts. So we have over here the commands that we need to type. So when we say npm dev, it is basically running this command behind the scene. Then we have the readme.md file. So this is basically the documentation for the project, typically containing instructions for installation, usage, and contribution. Finally, we have this file called tsconfig.json. This is a TypeScript configuration file that specifies compiler options such as module resolution, strictness, and paths. Now that we know what exactly each file is responsible for, now let's understand how the request is processed once we access the localhost URL that we have over here when we execute the command npm run dev. So when we visit this URL, the server routes the request to entry-server.tsx that we see over here. Now the entry-server.tsx file renders the app using the start server. It generates HTML with pre-rendered content and required assets. And this HTML is then sent to the client. The client receives the HTML and displays it immediately. Then we have a concept called client hydration. So here the entry-client.tsx file that we see, it executes the JavaScript bundle, which starts with this file itself, and it mounts start client into the app element. So if you notice, we have this div with an ID app, and here in entry-client.tsx file, we are mounting this thing into the app element. So basically it hydrates the app, enabling reactivity and interactivity. Once hydrated, the app uses SolidStart's routing system to handle client-side navigation and updates. So why this structure? First is the SSR benefit. Faster initial load times and better SEO. Then we have hydration benefit. That means converts server-rendered HTML into a fully interactive app without a full reload. And then we have the SolidStart framework. It manages this process seamlessly so developers can focus on building the app rather than wiring SSR and hydration manually. So if you see over here the source code of this particular page, by going over here and saying view page source, you'll notice everything has been pre-rendered over here. All the application that you see is here itself. That's why I initially mentioned that the default behavior is SSR in SolidStart. We can swap this behavior by providing a configuration setting over here. You can set the SSR property to false, and that's pretty much it. Let's save this, and here you can see now when I go and view the page source, you don't see the pre-rendered server-side code coming up. But that's how you can enable and disable SSR in SolidStart. So that was the basic structure of the application and how we can swap between server-side rendering and client-side rendering in SolidStart. In the next one, we'll be looking at what exactly these files are doing, like the app.tsx code. We'll review that, and then we'll also review the entry-client and entry-server code so that we can understand how each one of them are functioning and how each one of them are interlinked at code level.
If you find the video helpful, don't forget to like and subscribe.